The first gunshot shattered the silence exactly 3 seconds after Amelia Hart stepped out of the subway station. People screamed. Coffee cups exploded across the pavement. Businessmen dove behind parked cars while luxury SUVs screeched to a halt in the middle of downtown Manhattan. Amelia froze. At 29 years old, she had spent her entire life believing that ordinary people survived by staying invisible. She avoided arguments, ignored gossip, and kept her head down wherever she went. Being a plus-size woman had taught her that strangers noticed her before they knew her, and too often their judgment arrived before kindness ever had. So when bullets began tearing through the morning air, her first instinct wasn't to run. It was to help. A little boy had slipped beside the curb, crying as terrified pedestrians pushed past him. Without thinking, Amelia sprinted toward him. Another shot echoed. Glass rained from the windows above. She threw herself over the child just as a black armored sedan slammed onto the sidewalk, its reinforced tires crushing a newspaper stand into splinters. Men in tailored black suits poured from the vehicle. Not police. Not soldiers. Professionals. Each carried military-grade rifles with the discipline of people who had fired them many times before. One of them shouted, "Protect the boss." The words meant nothing to Amelia. Until another convoy of vehicles erupted from the opposite street. The attackers wore masks. Their weapons flashed like lightning. The intersection transformed into a battlefield. She hugged the frightened boy tighter as bullets struck the armored sedan with deafening metallic cracks. Someone grabbed the child from her arms. "It's okay," a trembling woman cried, pulling her son away. Only then did Amelia realize she had nowhere to hide. The gunfight had trapped her in the middle of the street. A masked assassin noticed her. Their eyes met. He raised his pistol. Amelia's heart stopped. Before the trigger could be pulled, another shot rang out. The assassin collapsed. Standing several yards away was a man in an immaculate charcoal suit. Over 6 feet tall. Broad shoulders. Perfect posture. His face showed no panic despite the war unfolding around him. Dark eyes swept over the battlefield with terrifying calm. Every armed man nearby instinctively shielded him. Whoever he was, everyone else was willing to die before letting him fall. His gaze landed briefly on Amelia. No fear. No sympathy. Just calculation. Then he turned away as another wave of attackers rushed forward. Within seconds, black SUVs surrounded him, disappearing into the chaos. The battle ended almost as suddenly as it had begun. Police sirens echoed from every direction. Witnesses recorded videos. News helicopters circled overhead. Amelia remained standing alone, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She had gone to what she thought would be an ordinary job interview. Instead, she had watched men kill one another in broad daylight. 2 hours later, the lobby of Valmont Global Tower looked nothing like the streets outside. Italian marble stretched beneath crystal chandeliers. A grand piano played softly in the corner. Fresh orchids decorated every polished surface. Employees in designer suits moved with quiet precision. Amelia glanced at her reflection in the towering glass entrance. Her navy blazer fit as neatly as she could afford after months of tailoring. She had always struggled to find professional clothes that celebrated her curves instead of hiding them. Years of cruel remarks from classmates, strangers, and even former employers echoed faintly in her memory. "You don't look executive enough. Clients prefer a different image. Maybe lose a little weight before representing the company." She had smiled through every insult. Worked harder than everyone else. Earned degrees while juggling 2 jobs. Built a reputation as one of the most gifted forensic accountants in financial fraud investigations. Competence had become her answer to prejudice. Today's interview represented her final chance. If she didn't get this position, she would lose her apartment within 2 months. The receptionist smiled politely. "Name? Amelia Hart." The woman checked her screen. Then her expression changed. "Please, wait here." She immediately made a phone call. Within seconds, 3 security officers appeared. Several executives turned to stare. Whispers spread across the lobby. Amelia's stomach tightened. Had something gone wrong with her background check? One guard approached. "Miss Hart." "Yes." "Please come with us." "Is there a problem?" "We'll explain upstairs." The elevator required fingerprint authorization. Floor numbers disappeared after level 50. The ride continued higher and higher, until finally the doors opened onto a private executive floor occupied by only one office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Ancient artwork hung beside modern masterpieces. The air itself felt expensive. Standing near the windows, was the same man she had seen during the gunfight. He hadn't changed clothes. Not a wrinkle marked his tailored suit. His hands rested calmly behind his back as though assassination attempts were simply another appointment on his calendar. Without turning around, he spoke. "You were at the intersection this morning?" Amelia swallowed. "Yes." "You looked directly at one of the assassins." I didn't mean to." He slowly faced her. His eyes were colder than polished steel. "I believe you witnessed something you were never supposed to see." Silence filled the office. Then the heavy security doors behind Amelia locked with a sharp metallic click. She turned instinctively. No handle remained on her side. When she looked back at the billionaire Mafia boss, his expression hadn't changed. But the men surrounding the room quietly rested their hands on concealed weapons. And for the first time that day, Amelia realized she might never leave this building alive. The emergency alarms echoed through the executive floor, but Adrian Valmont never flinched. His security team reacted instantly. Half the guards surrounded Adrian while the others secured every entrance to the private office. Voices crackled through encrypted earpieces as surveillance feeds from every floor streamed across a massive wall of monitors. "Lock down the tower. Seal the elevators. No one leaves." The commands flew through the room with military precision. Amelia instinctively stepped aside, refusing to become another obstacle. Within minutes, the security chief lowered his weapon. "False alarm, boss." Adrian's expression remained unreadable. "Not false." The guard frowned. "The assassin escaped before identification." Adrian nodded once. "Which means someone found a weakness in our security." His eyes shifted toward Amelia. "You start tomorrow." The next morning, Amelia arrived 30 minutes early. Valmont Global Tower was even more breathtaking in daylight. Sunlight poured through the marble atrium, reflecting from crystal chandeliers onto polished Italian stone. Employees dressed in tailored designer suits hurried through the lobby carrying luxury briefcases and tablets worth more than Amelia's monthly rent. She wore a simple navy dress beneath a fitted blazer. Elegant, professional, comfortable. She had stopped trying to disappear inside oversized clothing years ago. The receptionist smiled warmly this time. "Good morning, Miss Hart." Word spread quickly. The mysterious new assistant had somehow gone directly to the CEO's private office without passing through human resources. That alone invited speculation. The whispers began before she reached the elevator. "She doesn't look like executive material. She must know someone. I heard she's temporary. Boss will replace her within a week." Amelia heard every word. She kept walking. Confidence, she had learned, wasn't proving strangers wrong. It was refusing to let them decide who she was. The executive floor quickly revealed Adrian's impossible schedule. Board meetings. International investors. Private security briefings. Legal consultations. Charity foundation reviews. Confidential calls that never appeared on any calendar. His previous assistants had lasted an average of 12 days. She understood why before lunchtime. Every minute mattered. Every mistake carried consequences. Yet Amelia noticed something no one else seemed to see. 3 separate meetings had been scheduled for the same legal team in 2 different cities. A confidential merger presentation contained conflicting financial projections. And 1 overseas shipment had disappeared from the logistics schedule entirely. Most assistants would simply follow instructions. Amelia quietly investigated. Within 45 minutes, she reorganized the calendar, recovered the missing shipment records, corrected the financial discrepancies, and prevented what would have become a multi-million-dollar legal disaster. She left a concise report on Adrian's desk. No dramatic explanation. No request for praise. Just solutions. Late that afternoon, Adrian returned from a meeting with government officials. He glanced at the revised schedule. Then at the financial report. Finally, he looked toward Amelia. "You changed my calendar." "Yes." "You moved meetings involving 4 countries." "Yes." "You corrected projections my finance department approved." "Yes." His dark eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because they were wrong." Silence. "You verified everything?" "Twice." He opened the report again. Every correction included supporting evidence. Every recommendation had documentation. Nothing was based on assumptions. Only facts. The security chief, Marcus, looked over Adrian's shoulder. A slow whistle escaped him. "The old schedule would have cost us nearly $40 million. Amelia simply nodded. "I thought someone should know." Marcus couldn't hide his surprise. "She saved us without making a speech about it." Adrian closed the file. For the first time, there was something different in his expression. Not approval. Respect. You'll attend tomorrow's executive strategy meeting. Several department directors immediately objected. Sir, she's new. She isn't qualified. She's only an assistant. Adrian's response ended the discussion. No. The room fell silent. He continued calmly. She's my assistant. If she speaks. He looked around the conference table. You listen. Nobody argued again. Later that evening, Amelia stayed behind organizing confidential documents while most employees headed home. The enormous executive floor had grown almost silent. She carefully locked financial records into biometric safes before switching off the office lights. As she walked toward the elevator, she felt it. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. She stopped, turned. The hallway was empty. Only polished marble, expensive artwork, and dim security lighting stretched behind her. She almost laughed at herself. It had been an exhausting first day. She stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. Neither Amelia nor anyone inside Valmont Tower noticed the tiny red laser camera mounted inside a decorative ceiling vent. Miles away, inside an abandoned warehouse, a masked man watched Amelia's face appear across multiple surveillance screens. He slowly smiled. So. He paused the footage where Adrian had looked at Amelia with unmistakable respect. The boss finally found someone worth protecting. He reached for a secure satellite phone. It's time to begin Phase 2. The following morning, Valmont Global Tower operated as if nothing had happened. Luxury vehicles glided beneath the glass entrance. Executives discussed billion-dollar investments over imported coffee. Security teams stood perfectly still in tailored black suits, their earpieces hidden beneath crisp collars. Only Adrian Valmont's inner circle knew the truth. Someone had penetrated the safest building in the city. Someone had watched Amelia. And someone had escaped without leaving a name. Adrian stood at the head of the executive conference room, reviewing intelligence reports while Marcus projected surveillance footage onto a massive screen. Every camera has been checked twice, Marcus reported. No facial recognition. Whoever entered knew exactly where our blind spots were. Adrian folded his arms. That means they had inside information. The room fell silent. A traitor. The possibility hung over every person present. Adrian looked around the polished oak table. His executives had served him for years. Some had fought beside him during bloody Mafia wars. Others managed legitimate corporations worth billions. One of them could still be betraying him. We trust no one, Adrian said calmly. Not until we know who opened that door. His gaze briefly met Amelia's. She understood immediately. Even loyalty had become a question. Later that afternoon, Amelia buried herself in financial reports while preparing documents for an upcoming international acquisition. Numbers had always spoken more honestly than people. They revealed patterns. Secrets. Lies. As she compared shipping invoices from Valmont Logistics with international banking transfers, something felt wrong. 3 cargo shipments carrying luxury medical equipment had officially left Italy. The payments had been completed. Insurance certificates were authentic. Customs records matched perfectly. Everything looked legitimate. Except, the destination ports had never received the containers. Amelia checked again. Then again. The shipment numbers continued appearing inside different companies owned by Valmont Global. Someone had duplicated them. No ordinary accounting mistake could explain that. She quietly opened older records. The same pattern appeared 6 months earlier. Then 9 months. Then almost a year ago. Tiny amounts. Scattered across different subsidiaries. Almost invisible individually. Together. Hundreds of millions of dollars had quietly disappeared. Her heartbeat quickened. This wasn't theft. It was preparation. Someone had been moving enormous amounts of money without attracting attention. The office door opened. Marcus entered carrying several encrypted folders. You haven't gone home? Amelia turned her monitor slightly. I think you should see something. Marcus studied the spreadsheets. His relaxed expression vanished. Where did you find this? I wasn't looking for it. She pointed toward the duplicated shipment codes. Someone built a financial maze. Marcus immediately understood. If investigators checked one company, they'd never notice the money flowing through 20 others, Amelia finished. He looked genuinely impressed. Our auditors missed this. They weren't supposed to find it. Marcus stared at her. You figured this out in one afternoon. I followed the numbers. He grabbed the encrypted folders. We're showing Adrian. 20 minutes later, Amelia stood once again inside Adrian's private office. He read every page without interruption. The only sound came from the city beyond the windows. When he reached the final report, he slowly placed it on his desk. This isn't embezzlement. No, Amelia agreed. It's funding something. Marcus nodded. We just don't know what. Adrian walked toward a digital map covering one wall. Red lights marked dozens of international operations. Shipping routes, private ports, warehouses, corporate headquarters. He pressed several locations. 5 of them immediately connected to Amelia's report. They're creating hidden supply lines. Marcus frowned. For weapons. Maybe. For trafficking? Possible. For something bigger? Neither man answered. The uncertainty was worse. Suddenly Adrian's encrypted phone vibrated. He answered without greeting. The voice on the other end spoke only a few words. Adrian's face hardened. When? Pause. I understand. He ended the call. Marcus immediately stepped forward. What happened? Our informant inside the Romano Syndicate is dead. Silence swallowed the room. The Romano Syndicate. The most ruthless rival mafia organization on the East Coast. They had spent years trying to destroy Adrian's empire. If they were connected to the missing money, war was coming. Adrian turned toward Amelia. Everything you discovered stays between the 3 of us. She nodded. I understand. No emails. No copies. No discussions. Not even with employees you trust. I won't tell anyone. Before Adrian could respond, every light inside the office suddenly went dark. The entire executive floor lost power. Emergency generators failed to activate. For the first time in years, Valmont Tower stood completely blind. Marcus reached for his weapon. Boss. His voice dropped to a whisper. Our security network is offline. At that exact moment, the reinforced glass behind Adrian shattered. A silenced sniper round tore through the office, missing his head by less than an inch before embedding itself deep into the marble wall. Every guard drew their weapons. Another shot echoed through the darkness. This time, it was aimed directly at Amelia. The second sniper round ripped through the darkness. Down? Adrian roared. And someone had escaped without leaving a name. Adrian stood at the head of the executive conference room, reviewing intelligence reports while Marcus projected surveillance footage onto a massive screen. Every camera has been checked twice, Marcus reported. No facial recognition. Whoever entered knew exactly where our blind spots were. Adrian folded his arms. That means they had inside information. The room fell silent. The traitor. The possibility hung over every person present. Adrian looked around the polished oak table. His executives had served him for years. Some had fought beside him during bloody mafia wars. Others managed legitimate corporations worth billions. One of them could still be betraying him. We trust no one, Adrian said calmly. Not until we know who opened that door. His gaze briefly met Amelia's. She understood immediately. Even loyalty had become a question. Later that afternoon, Amelia buried herself in financial reports while preparing documents for an upcoming international acquisition. Numbers had always spoken more honestly than people. They revealed patterns. Secrets. What? As she compared shipping invoices from Valmont Logistics with international banking transfers, something felt wrong. 3 cargo shipments carrying luxury medical equipment had officially left Italy. The payments had been completed. Insurance certificates were authentic. Customs records matched perfectly. Everything looked legitimate. Except, the destination ports had never received the containers. Amelia checked again. Then again. The shipment numbers continued appearing inside different companies owned by Valmont Global. Someone had duplicated them. No ordinary accounting mistake could explain that. She quietly opened older records. The same pattern appeared 6 months earlier. Then 9 months. Then almost a year ago. Tiny amounts. Scattered across different subsidiaries. Almost invisible individually. Together. Hundreds of millions of dollars had quietly disappeared. Her heartbeat quickened. This wasn't theft. It was preparation. Someone had been moving enormous amounts of money without attracting attention. The office door opened. Marcus entered carrying several encrypted folders. You haven't gone home? Amelia turned her monitor slightly. I think you should see something. Marcus studied the spreadsheets. His relaxed expression vanished. Where did you find this? I wasn't looking for it. She pointed toward the duplicated shipment codes. Someone built a financial maze. Marcus immediately understood. If investigators checked one company, they'd never notice the money flowing through 20 others, Amelia finished. He looked genuinely impressed. Our auditors missed this. They weren't supposed to find it. Marcus stared at her. You figured this out in one afternoon. I followed the numbers. He grabbed the encrypted folders. We're showing Adrian. 20 minutes later, Amelia stood once again inside Adrian's private office. He read every page without interruption. The only sound came from the city beyond the windows. When he reached the final report, he slowly placed it on his desk. This isn't embezzlement. No, Amelia agreed. It's funding something. Marcus nodded. We just don't know what. Adrian walked toward a digital map covering one wall. Red lights marked dozens of international operations. Shipping routes, private ports, warehouses, corporate headquarters. He pressed several locations. 5 of them immediately connected to Amelia's report. They're creating hidden supply lines. Marcus frowned. For weapons. Maybe. For trafficking? Possible. For something bigger? Neither man answered. The uncertainty was worse. Suddenly Adrian's encrypted phone vibrated. He answered without greeting. The voice on the other end spoke only a few words. Adrian's face hardened. When? Pause. I understand. He ended the call. Marcus immediately stepped forward. What happened? Our informant inside the Romano Syndicate is dead. Silence swallowed the room. The Romano Syndicate. The most ruthless rival mafia organization on the East Coast. They had spent years trying to destroy Adrian's empire. If they were connected to the missing money, war was coming. Adrian turned toward Amelia. Everything you discovered stays between the 3 of us. She nodded. I understand. No emails. No copies. No discussions. Not even with employees you trust. I won't tell anyone. Before Adrian could respond, every light inside the office suddenly went dark. The entire executive floor lost power. Emergency generators failed to activate. For the first time in years, Valmont Tower stood completely blind. Marcus reached for his weapon. Boss. His voice dropped to a whisper. Our security network is offline. At that exact moment, the reinforced glass behind Adrian shattered. A silenced sniper round tore through the office, missing his head by less than an inch before embedding itself deep into the marble wall. Every guard drew their weapons. Another shot echoed through the darkness. This time, it was aimed directly at Amelia. The second sniper round ripped through the darkness. Down? Adrian roared. Before Amelia could react, a powerful arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her behind the solid mahogany conference table. The bullet shattered the glass wall where she had been standing only a heartbeat earlier, spraying crystal fragments across the office. The executive floor erupted into chaos. Emergency lights flickered to life, bathing the room in a deep crimson glow. Marcus fired 2 controlled shots toward the broken windows. Multiple shooters. Another burst of gunfire answered him. The reinforced glass continued exploding inward. They're using armor-piercing rounds, one guard shouted. Adrian remained astonishingly calm. Activate Protocol Black. We can't, Marcus answered grimly. The security network is still offline. That meant the attackers had done far more than cut the power. Someone inside the building had disabled Valmont Tower's entire defense system. The traitor had chosen the perfect moment. A violent explosion rocked the hallway outside. The office doors burst open. Masked gunmen wearing tactical armor stormed into the executive floor, firing automatic rifles with ruthless precision. The guards met them head-on. The hallway became a battlefield. Bullets tore through marble columns. Smoke filled the air. Designer artwork worth millions crashed onto polished floors. Adrian drew a custom black pistol from beneath his jacket. His movements were terrifyingly efficient. He fired once. One attacker collapsed. Twice. A second gunman dropped before reaching the doorway. There was no hesitation. No wasted motion. Only absolute control. Amelia remained behind cover, her heart pounding against her ribs. She had never witnessed violence like this. Yet through the deafening gunfire, another sound caught her attention. The shrill alarm from one of the digital servers. She looked toward Adrian's desk. Several confidential financial files had automatically opened on the large display moments before the power failure. Now the system was rapidly deleting records. The same records exposing the hidden money transfers. Someone wasn't just trying to kill Adrian. They were trying to erase every trace of the conspiracy. Mr. Valmont. Amelia shouted. He glanced toward her. The servers. Another explosion shook the office. Marcus grabbed Adrian's shoulder. "Boss, we have to move." Adrian looked toward the screen. Then toward Amelia. She already understood. Without waiting for permission, she sprinted through flying debris toward the executive workstation. A bullet struck the desk inches from her hand. She ignored it. As a forensic accountant, Amelia had spent years investigating financial fraud. One lesson had become second nature. Criminals always destroyed evidence before they disappeared. She connected an encrypted emergency drive from her work bag to the system. The screen flashed red. Remote data deletion in progress. She typed rapidly. Firewalls. Recovery protocols. Mirror backups. Encrypted transaction logs. The attackers had triggered an automated purge, but they hadn't anticipated someone who understood forensic recovery. "Come on," she whispered. 98%. 97. The files continued disappearing. She bypassed the deletion sequence and redirected every remaining record into the portable encrypted drive. 80% recovered. Another bullet shattered the monitor above her head. Glass rained over the keyboard. Marcus yelled across the room. "Miss Hart. I'm almost done." Adrian eliminated another attacker before moving closer to shield her. His own body became the barrier between Amelia and the incoming gunfire. He wasn't protecting the evidence anymore. He was protecting her. The recovery reached completion. Data successfully preserved. Amelia pulled out the drive. "We've got everything." At that exact moment, smoke grenades rolled across the office. Dense gray clouds swallowed the room. Thermal goggles illuminated inside the attackers' masks. "They're advancing." Marcus fired blindly through the smoke. A masked man suddenly emerged behind Amelia. Before anyone could react, he wrapped one arm around her neck while pressing a pistol against her side. "Drop your weapons," he shouted. Every guard froze. The attacker smiled beneath his mask. "The boss chooses." He shoved Amelia forward. "His empire?" The pistol dug harder into her ribs. "Or the woman?" Silence. Only the hiss of smoke filled the office. Marcus slowly lowered his rifle. Several guards exchanged helpless glances. No one had ever dared force Adrian Valmont into an impossible decision. The attacker laughed. "I've heard rumors." He looked directly at Adrian. "They say you started trusting your new assistant." He leaned closer to Amelia. "So let's find out whether the rumors are true." Adrian's expression remained unreadable. His pistol never wavered. Then very quietly he spoke. "You've made one fatal mistake." The attacker grinned. "And what's that?" "You assumed?" Adrian's eyes locked with Amelia's. "She needs saving." For a split second the gunman looked confused. It was enough. Amelia slammed the heavy encrypted drive backward into his wrist with every ounce of strength she had. The pistol discharged harmlessly into the ceiling. She drove her elbow into his ribs, twisted free and dropped to the floor. At the exact same instant, 3 suppressed shots echoed. The attacker collapsed before he ever hit the ground. Adrian had fired all 3 rounds. Every bullet struck its target. Perfectly. The remaining gunman immediately retreated toward the shattered windows. "Fall back. They've secured the evidence." Within seconds, ropes disappeared into the darkness outside. The surviving attackers escaped across neighboring rooftops before helicopters could arrive. Silence slowly returned. Smoke drifted through the ruined executive floor. Marble was cracked. Glass covered every surface. Half the office had been destroyed. Marcus walked toward Amelia, still breathing hard. "You saved the financial evidence." He looked at the encrypted drive in her hand. If that data had vanished. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Adrian approached slowly. For several moments he simply looked at her. She expected criticism. Questions. Another test. Instead, he removed his tailored suit jacket and carefully draped it across her shoulders after noticing the cuts on her arms from the shattered glass. His voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "You didn't panic." Amelia managed a tired smile. "I was terrified. But you still did what needed to be done." His eyes held hers. No one else in this building could have recovered those files. He glanced at the encrypted drive. "You didn't just save evidence." A long pause. "You may have saved my entire empire." Before Amelia could answer, Marcus's earpiece crackled violently. His expression turned pale. "Boss." He looked toward Adrian. "Our surveillance team just identified the man who ordered today's attack." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Who?" Marcus swallowed. He isn't from the Romano Syndicate. Another tense silence filled the shattered office. Marcus spoke the name almost in disbelief. He's one of your own family. The name Marcus had spoken lingered in the ruined office long after the smoke began to clear. One of Adrian Valmont's own family. The betrayal explained too much. The disabled security network. The sniper's perfect timing. The missing financial records. Someone with access to the empire had invited death through its front door. Adrian's face revealed nothing, but Amelia noticed the subtle tightening of his jaw. It was the first crack she had seen in the armor surrounding him. He turned to Marcus. Tell no one. Marcus nodded immediately. The investigation stays between us. No exceptions. Within minutes, Adrian ordered every remaining executive to leave the building. The tower was placed under complete lockdown. Only trusted guards remained. Amelia quietly picked up her handbag from beneath the damaged conference table. I should probably go home. Adrian looked at the broken windows overlooking the city. No. She blinked. The attackers know your face. He stepped closer. They know you saved the evidence. They won't stop now. I don't want to cause problems for you. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. The problem isn't you. It's anyone who believes hurting you will weaken me. The words settled heavily between them. For the first time, Amelia realized she was no longer simply an employee. She had become a target. An hour later, a convoy of armored luxury SUVs rolled through the private gates of the Valmont estate. The mansion stood on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, surrounded by towering iron gates, manicured gardens, fountains carved from white marble, and layers of elite security that resembled a military fortress more than a home. Inside, everything reflected quiet elegance. Handcrafted Italian furniture. Original paintings. Towering fireplaces. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. The luxury wasn't designed to impress visitors. It reflected generations of unimaginable wealth. A housekeeper greeted Amelia warmly. Your room is ready, Miss Hart. My room? Adrian answered before the staff could. You'll stay here. She hesitated. I couldn't possibly. You can. I don't want to impose. You're under my protection. His calm voice carried no room for negotiation. And I don't fail to protect what's mine. The final words escaped so naturally that even Adrian seemed to notice them after they were spoken. Silence followed. Amelia looked away first. Later that evening, after doctors finished treating the small cuts on her hands and arms, Amelia stepped onto one of the mansion's oceanfront terraces. The cool night breeze carried the scent of salt water. For the first time in days, everything was quiet. Footsteps approached. Adrian joined her, holding a small velvet box. I noticed something. She looked at him. During the attack. He opened the box. Inside rested a delicate platinum bracelet. Its elegant design concealed a tiny emergency transmitter. If you're ever in danger. He gently lifted it. This sends your location directly to my security team. Amelia smiled softly. You turned a panic button into jewelry. I dislike ugly technology. She laughed. A genuine laugh. It surprised both of them. Adrian carefully fastened the bracelet around her wrist. His fingers brushed lightly against her skin. Neither of them moved for several seconds. You deserve beautiful things, he said quietly. You don't have to earn them by surviving. Her throat tightened. No one's ever said something like that to me. He studied the ocean before answering. My mother used to. She looked at him with surprise. You rarely speak about your family. I rarely speak about anyone. His voice became unusually distant. When I was 16. He paused. I watched my parents die because someone they trusted sold them to our enemies. The confession came without drama. Without self-pity. Simply as truth. That day. He looked toward the dark waves. I decided emotions made people weak. Amelia gently shook her head. No. He looked at her. Trusting the wrong people makes us vulnerable. She stepped a little closer. But refusing to trust anyone. It makes us lonely. For a long moment Adrian said nothing. Then a faint smile appeared. So the forensic accountant also analyzes broken mafia bosses? She smiled back. Only the stubborn ones. The tension between them shifted. No longer employer and employee. Not yet lovers. Something quieter. Something growing. Adrian reached into his jacket and removed a small leather folder. I had your employment contract rewritten. She accepted it curiously. The salary listed inside made her eyes widen. It was nearly 5 times the amount they had originally agreed upon. Adrian? You've already saved more than money. He held her gaze. You've saved lives. You've protected people who didn't even know they needed protecting. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. I hired an assistant. Pause. I found someone extraordinary. Heat rose to Amelia's cheeks. No compliment about her appearance had ever affected her the way simple respect did. She looked down at the bracelet around her wrist. It feels strange. What does? Being seen. Adrian answered without hesitation. I see everything others overlooked. His eyes lingered on her with unmistakable warmth. They underestimated you. I won't make that mistake. The ocean breeze stirred between them. They stood only inches apart now. Neither willing to move away. Neither brave enough to close the remaining distance. Just as Amelia noticed his gaze drifting toward her lips, a sharp gunshot echoed from somewhere beyond the estate walls. Every security alarm exploded to life. The gunshot outside the Valmont estate proved to be a diversion. Within minutes, Marcus confirmed that a sniper had fired from nearly a mile away before disappearing into the surrounding forest. No one had been injured, but the message was unmistakable. Someone wanted Adrian to know they could reach his home. 2 days later, despite the heightened security, Adrian refused to cancel the annual Valmont Foundation Gala. It's more than a charity event, Marcus explained as Amelia reviewed the evening schedule. Every major business leader, politician, diplomat, and Mafia family representative will be there. If Adrian cancels, our enemies will smell weakness. Amelia nodded. So we're pretending everything is normal. Adrian looked up from his desk. We're reminding the world who controls this city. That evening, the Valmont Grand Hotel glittered beneath thousands of crystal lights. Luxury cars lined the entrance. International celebrities walked the red carpet beside billionaires, ambassadors, and CEOs. Hidden among the guests were elite members of powerful crime syndicates, all dressed in custom tuxedos and designer gowns as though they weren't responsible for some of the world's darkest secrets. Amelia hesitated before stepping out of the limousine. She had never attended anything remotely like this. Adrian extended his hand. You belong here. She looked down at the elegant midnight blue gown prepared for her by the estate stylist. The dress embraced her curves instead of hiding them, proving that confidence never depended on becoming smaller. I still feel like everyone is staring. Adrian offered the faintest smile. They are. She sighed. That doesn't help. They're staring because you're remarkable. His voice remained calm. Not because you're different. For reasons she couldn't explain, she believed him. Together they entered the ballroom. Conversation stopped. Hundreds of guests turned toward the entrance. Whispers spread almost instantly. That's the new assistant. I expected someone else. She's the woman from the attack. Several executives who had dismissed Amelia only days earlier exchanged uncomfortable glances. One senior director leaned toward another. She won't survive this environment. Unfortunately for him, Amelia heard every word. She simply smiled politely and continued walking. Adrian noticed. Without breaking stride, he offered her his arm. The gesture was subtle. Yet everyone understood its meaning. The most feared man in the room had publicly chosen who would stand beside him. No one questioned it again. The gala progressed with effortless elegance. An orchestra performed beneath glittering chandeliers while priceless artwork surrounded the ballroom. Waiters served gourmet cuisine prepared by Michelin-starred chefs, and charitable donations climbed into the tens of millions within the first hour. Then the foundation's financial presentation began. A board member confidently stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's investment report demonstrates another record-breaking year. Halfway through the presentation, Amelia frowned. Several figures projected onto the enormous screen didn't match the financial reports she had reviewed earlier. Someone had manipulated the numbers. Whether by accident or design, the error would become a public disaster. She quietly leaned toward Adrian. The overseas investment totals are incorrect. He looked at her. You're certain? Completely. The presenter continued speaking. Journalists prepared their cameras. International investors watched every slide. If the false figures became public, Valmont Global's credibility would collapse overnight. Adrian stood. The ballroom fell silent. He looked directly at Amelia. Would you join me? Hundreds of eyes followed her as she walked toward the stage. Several directors looked horrified. One whispered, "She's only an assistant." Adrian heard him. He calmly replied into the microphone. No. He turned toward Amelia with complete confidence. She's the most capable financial mind in this room. Silence swept across the ballroom. Amelia took a steady breath before approaching the presentation. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. Within moments, she identified the duplicated international exchange rates that had inflated several investment totals. Using only the original financial data and a digital tablet, she recalculated every figure in real time. The corrected numbers appeared on the massive screen. Every total balanced perfectly. Every transaction aligned. Every investor could immediately verify the accuracy. The ballroom erupted into applause. Several executives who had doubted her were left speechless. One elderly banker slowly stood. Extraordinary. Another investor nodded with admiration. That's the fastest forensic correction I've ever witnessed. Even rival executives applauded despite themselves. Marcus smiled from the edge of the room. They underestimated the wrong woman. As the applause continued, Adrian stepped beside Amelia. Instead of reclaiming the spotlight, he gently took her hand. His voice carried across the silent ballroom. Many people judge strength by appearance. He looked proudly at Amelia. I judge it by character. A brief pause. This woman has protected my company, my people, and my future. He faced the audience. Anyone who questions her value? His eyes swept across every executive in the room. Questions my judgment. No one spoke. No one dared. The criticism ended forever. Amelia looked at Adrian, emotion shining in her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't being tolerated. She was being celebrated. As the orchestra resumed playing and guests surrounded them with congratulations, neither of them noticed a waiter quietly leaving the ballroom through a staff entrance. Hidden beneath his serving tray was a miniature camera. Every second of Adrian publicly defending Amelia had been recorded. Outside, inside a black armored SUV parked across the street, the masked observer watched the live footage and smiled coldly. So, he reached for his phone. The boss has finally revealed his greatest weakness. The applause inside the ballroom faded into elegant conversation, but outside the Valmont Grand Hotel, engines quietly came to life. 3 black delivery trucks rolled into the underground service entrance. Their paperwork had already been approved. Their drivers carried authentic security credentials. Every checkpoint waved them through. Marcus frowned as he reviewed the live security feed from his tablet. Those trucks weren't on tonight's final schedule. One of the guards answered confidently. They arrived with updated authorization from headquarters. Marcus's expression hardened. We didn't issue any updates. Before he could finish speaking, every screen monitoring the service entrance suddenly went black. His blood ran cold. The security network's been hacked. Inside the ballroom, Adrian was still surrounded by investors congratulating Amelia on her brilliant presentation. She smiled politely, but something felt wrong. Far across the room, one of the catering staff avoided eye contact while speaking quietly into an earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Another waiter moved toward the emergency exit instead of the kitchen. Years of studying patterns had taught Amelia one lesson. People rarely betrayed themselves with words. They betrayed themselves with behavior. She leaned toward Adrian. We have a problem. He immediately noticed the seriousness in her voice. What is it? Those 2 waiters. Adrian casually glanced across the ballroom without turning his head. Neither man belonged. Marcus suddenly burst through the crowd. Boss. Every nearby guest fell silent. The building has been compromised. The lights exploded. A deafening blast shook the entire hotel as the underground loading dock erupted in flames. The ballroom ceiling trembled. Crystal chandeliers swayed violently. Guests screamed. Smoke poured through the ventilation system. Then came the gunfire. Masked commandos stormed through every entrance with military precision, firing into the ceiling to force the crowd toward the center of the ballroom. This is a kidnapping, one attacker shouted. Nobody move. Chaos swallowed the gala. Politicians dropped behind tables. Business leaders scrambled for cover. Several rival Mafia representatives drew concealed weapons, turning the charity event into a battlefield. Adrian pulled Amelia behind a marble pillar. Marcus and the security team immediately formed a defensive perimeter. Bullets ricocheted across the ballroom. Glass shattered. Tables overturned. The orchestra abandoned their instruments as terrified guests fled in every direction. One masked commander pointed directly toward Adrian. Take the boss alive. Another voice answered. And bring the woman. Amelia stared in disbelief. They came for both of us. Adrian's jaw tightened. No. His eyes never left the attackers. They came for you. Before she could respond, smoke grenades burst across the ballroom. Visibility vanished. Through the confusion, several commandos broke through Marcus's defensive line. One struck Adrian across the shoulder with a rifle stock. Another grabbed Amelia from behind. A cloth covered her mouth. She fought desperately. The attackers dragged her toward the emergency exit. Amelia. Adrian's voice thundered through the smoke. She reached toward him. Their fingertips almost touched. Another explosion separated them. The emergency doors slammed shut. Within seconds, Amelia found herself inside one of the delivery trucks speeding away from the hotel. Her hands were restrained. 4 armed men surrounded her. The commander removed his mask. He smiled. "You've become very valuable." Amelia remained remarkably calm. "You'll never get away." He laughed. "We already have." As the truck accelerated onto the highway, Amelia quietly observed everything. The driver's accent. The dashboard controls. The GPS display. The emergency fuel monitoring system. Then she noticed it. One of the kidnappers had unknowingly placed the encrypted financial drive, the same one she had saved during the attack, inside a metal storage case connected to the truck's communications equipment. The powerful magnetic shielding interfered with the vehicle's encrypted tracking signal. A dangerous flaw. Without attracting attention, Amelia shifted slightly, allowing the platinum emergency bracelet Adrian had given her to brush against the exposed metal edge. The hidden transmitter immediately received enough signal to activate. A tiny green light blinked once beneath the bracelet. No one noticed. Miles away, inside Valmont Tower's emergency command center, a secure monitor suddenly flashed. Emergency beacon detected. Marcus looked up instantly. "We've got her location." Back inside the truck, the commander answered a secure satellite phone. "Package secured." Pause. Then his smile widened. "Understood." He ended the call and looked directly at Amelia. "The person who ordered this operation asked me to tell you something." She said nothing. He said. The commander's voice turned almost amused. "You should never have trusted Adrian's family." At that exact moment, the truck slowed beneath an abandoned warehouse. The massive steel doors opened. Standing inside, surrounded by dozens of armed mercenaries, was a sharply dressed man whose face looked hauntingly familiar. Not to Amelia, but to Adrian. Because the man waiting calmly inside the warehouse was Adrian's younger cousin. The same cousin he had raised after their parents died. The same cousin he had trusted like a brother. As Amelia was forced from the truck, she looked into the stranger's cold eyes. He smiled gently. "I'm sorry." A brief pause. "But sometimes the only way to destroy a king." He looked toward the city skyline. "Is to steal the only person who reminded him he still had a heart." Far across the city, Adrian stood inside the burning ballroom, staring at the empty space where Amelia had disappeared. For the first time in decades, the Valmont Empire knew peace. Inside the estate's grand ballroom, hundreds of guests gathered beneath crystal chandeliers. Business leaders, government officials, trusted allies, members of the Valmont organization, and the people who had become Amelia's unexpected family. Marcus adjusted his tie and smiled as Adrian stood near the balcony. "I've seen you face armies without blinking." He chuckled. "But today you're nervous." Adrian straightened the cuff of his tailored black tuxedo. "I've negotiated with presidents." Marcus grinned. "And?" "I've never negotiated with my own heart." Soft music filled the ballroom. The grand staircase came into view. Amelia appeared at the top. She wore an elegant ivory gown that celebrated her curves with timeless grace instead of trying to conceal them. A simple platinum bracelet, the same one Adrian had given her on the night everything changed, rested on her wrist. The entire ballroom fell silent. Adrian couldn't take his eyes off her. Not because she looked beautiful, though she did, but because she carried herself with the quiet confidence of a woman who finally believed she never needed to become someone else to deserve love. She walked toward him. Every step felt like the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. When she reached him, Adrian gently took both of her hands. "I spent most of my life believing power was the greatest form of protection," he said softly. "I was wrong." He looked into her eyes. "You taught me that trust is stronger than fear. You taught me that kindness isn't weakness. And you reminded me that even the strongest man needs someone who tells him the truth." His voice grew quieter. "I love you, Amelia. Not because you saved my empire. Not because you stood beside me when others ran. I love you because when the whole world tried to measure your worth by your appearance." He smiled warmly. "You never allowed them to define your soul." Tears shimmered in Amelia's eyes. I spent years wondering if someone would ever truly see me. She squeezed his hands. Then I met the one man everyone feared. A gentle laugh spread through the guests. And somehow, she smiled through happy tears. He became the safest place I'd ever known. I love you too. The ballroom erupted into applause as Adrian carefully slipped a platinum ring onto her finger. There is one more promise, he said. She tilted her head curiously. From today forward. He turned toward every leader, executive, and captain gathered inside the ballroom. His voice carried with calm authority. Amelia Hart Valmont is not standing behind me. She stands beside me. He looked proudly at her. She is my equal. My closest advisor. My partner. My family. And from this day onward. He smiled. The queen of the Valmont Empire. Every member of the organization rose to their feet. One by one they bowed their heads, not out of fear but out of respect. Marcus smiled. The empire finally has the leader it deserves. Months later, the Valmont Foundation expanded its work across the country, funding hospitals, schools, and rehabilitation programs using wealth once hidden by corruption. Amelia led every financial initiative with integrity. Adrian continued protecting the empire. Together, they transformed fear into stability, loyalty into family, and power into purpose. Some people still whispered stories about the ruthless mafia boss. Others spoke of the brilliant woman who had saved his empire. But those who truly knew them understood something far greater. A kingdom built on fear can survive. A kingdom built on trust can last forever. And every evening, as the sun disappeared beyond the ocean, Adrian would gently take Amelia's hand and remind her of the promise he intended to keep for the rest of his life. You were always enough. You always belonged beside me. And no matter what tomorrow brings, you will forever be the greatest victory of my life. The end. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this mafia romance, let me know your favorite moment in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional, action-packed mafia love stories where courage, loyalty, and true love overcome every obstacle.